Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to be showing you my variation on the hidden magic technique. So I have a video on the original hidden magic technique and I'll include that in the links below, but this is my variation, so it's a bit different. So I've got a skinner blend here that I've reduced down, and it was done using pearl white Primo and bright green Primo, and that was a skinner blend. I put it into a skinner blend bullseye cane and then I reduced it down. Now I have a tutorial showing how to create a skinner blend and how to create a skinner blend bullseye cane, so I'll provide those in the links below for you if you need, but this is basically where we'll start. So we need to cut this in half. We need lots of little bits. So when I cut it in half, I like to just do this. Then I'll bring it over again and fold it in half again. Just like that. Now we need quite a few pieces. So at the moment we've got 4, I want about 16. So I'll cut this into another 4 pieces. So we have about 16 pieces. Okay, and then you want to lay them all beside each other, like this. Okay, now we need to flatten this out, so I'll just pick this up with my blade and then I'll bring over my acrylic rod and we'll just flatten it out. Now I don't want to widen these bullseye canes, I just want to lengthen them, just like that. And then I'll pick it up again. See? And I run this through my pasta machine on the fixed setting, which is a number 7 on mine. Okay, and each time I'm going to be lengthening my bullseye canes. I'm not going to be running it through from this end to this end. I want to be lengthening these. Okay, now I've gone down to my 4th setting. And there we are. Now we need to go get a black sheet, and here's one that I've done already. Now this is black Primo and it was put through on the thinnest setting of my pasta machine, which is a number 1, and so I'm just gonna lay it over the top of our bullseye canes so that it covers it like that. And then you'll just smooth it out to get rid of any air bubbles, because you don't want to trap those. So just make sure that you get that done. Then I'll bring over my tissue blade and pick it up and flip. This way I can see where I need to trim. Now it doesn't have to be an exact trim, we just want to get rid of most of this black. So I'll just go around with my tissue blade and trim that off. Because we don't want this hanging off the sheet while we're stamping and using it. Okay. Now I'll just flip that up again, and that's what we have. So I'll just make sure that I've got rid of all the air bubbles, because we really don't want any. Okay, then I'll bring over my texture stamp that I'm going to be using. Oops. And I'm going to be using Lisa Pavelka's foliage stamp. and this is just the one that I'm going to be using today. You can use any texture stamp you want. Personally, I find that the texture stamps that have a deep indent in them work best, and Lisa Pavelka's got a lot of stamps that have deep indents. Melanie Muir's and Christy Friesen's ones work really well as well, and those are just a few, but just find stamps that have a deep indent. I find that they're easier to use when it comes to this technique. Then you're going to take your spray bottle and spray the surface of your stamp. Then you're going to take your piece of clay, and you've got two sides. So you've got the side where you have your Skinner Blend bullseye canes, and you also have the side where you have your solid piece of clay. Now, you want the solid piece of clay to be going face down into your texture sheet. You don't want it the other way around. Then, before you press into it, spray the surface of your clay. And this will prevent your fingers sticking to your clay and lifting it up while you're stamping. Then you'll start from one end of your texture stamp, and you'll work your way all the way up. And the reason for this, of course, is to get rid of any air bubbles that might be trapped. It will also push out any excess water, because you don't want those trapped in your stamp while you're stamping, because that will distort your image and it will cause problems later on. And also, you might be wondering why I'm using my fingers and not a roller. Lots of the professionals use a roller and just make one quick pass. Now, you can try that, but I find that unless you've practiced it a bazillion times, you've got a 50-50 chance of messing it up. So I like to press it in with my fingers first. It does take a little while longer, but it's risk-free. And then I go with my roller and roll it over. And this is great, especially for beginners, as when I started and I tried it the way that the professionals were doing, it just irritated me a lot because I just kept on messing it up. Now that I've pressed it in, I'll take my roller and I'll make one quick pass. And you can carry on doing a pass, but you just want to watch your sheet closely, because if your sheet lifts up and you continue rolling, you'll get a ghost image. So if it accidentally lifts up while you're rolling, you want to stop rolling, because then what happens is that texture that you had will lay over in a different spot and not in the exact spot that you originally pressed the texture in, and so you'll get a ghost image. And a ghost image is when your sheet doesn't lay down in the right spot, and so you actually re-indent that texture. And the problem is then you get crossover lines and it messes up your pattern. So you want to be very careful of that. Now, when you're picking it up, you want to go very slowly. You don't want to be ripping it off, because even though you did spray water on it, sometimes you will miss a few areas, and if you ripped it like that really quickly, you'd accidentally tear your clay if it happened to get stuck in the stamp. But if you're going really slowly and lifting it up, you can see when it's stuck in the stamp and you can gently manipulate it up to avoid tearing your clay. Now, you can see that my entire work surface over here is wet. I need to dry this before we can proceed, because water on your clay will cause problems when you're slicing off your indents, because it will first off smear your clay, and it will also cause your clay to stick to your blade, and also your sheet will slide around all over the place while you're slicing, so it will just cause many different problems. So I'm going to go ahead and dry, and I'll come back when I'm done. Okay, so now that we have finished drying up our clay, we can proceed with the next step. Now, I've dried my tile, the back of my clay, and the top of my clay. You want to make sure that you do all of those areas. Then you'll gently pat it down onto your tile to get it to stick to your tile. And so now this is stuck. Then you'll take your flexible tissue blade, and this is it. And then you'll start slicing. Now, before I start, I want to just show you what you need to do. You need to hold your blade in the middle. most people will hold their blade like this, and so you can see this can cause problems, especially if you're using the flexible blade, because it'll leave a lot of room for your blade to move while you're slicing, and so you won't get an even slice. You want to hold it in the middle and keep your hands resting on your work surface as you slice. And what I always say is go shallow, and then you can go deeper if you need to, because you can always go back and go deeper if you need to, but you can't go shallower. You'll have to start again. Okay. So go slowly, don't rush the process. And you should come out with something looking similar to this. Basically what you are trying to do is slice off the black on the top indents, but you want to leave it in the veins so that you get the leaf image. Now this can take some patience because you have a very thin line between going too deep and going too shallow. Now I've had a lot of practice, so I'm getting this fairly well on the first try. But if you're new to this technique and haven't tried it much, go shallow at first and then go deeper as you need. So you can see we're already getting a pretty good pattern. And this is the hidden magic part of it. And because we use those Skinner blend bullseye canes, we'll get a different, some of it will be a darkish green, which will be that bright green part, but as you cut down deeper you'll get the white as well. Now all of these bits that you're slicing off, be sure to keep them, as they're not scraps. Well, they are scraps, but they're nice scraps. They're not the horrible muddy kind that you can't really do much with. They're the nice kind that you can use in other leftover techniques. And I'll include a few leftover technique links in the links below if you're interested, where I use some leftovers. There are many different versions out there. There's my Starry Night leftover technique. That one's really fun. There's the Stroppel cane. There's a whole bunch of other ones that I'm sure you'll find really fun to do. Okay, so we're basically finished. Now we've still got a few areas that could do with some tinkering, and you'll want to spend some time doing that. So here you can see that, I'll just point to it with my knife, like over here the leaf pattern hasn't come out quite right, and over here it hasn't come out right. So I'll tinker around a little bit more and I'll come back when I'm done. Okay, so I'm basically finished. I've got rid of a whole bunch of the black areas. Now this is a reason why I say using a deep stamp is great, because it gives you a lot more room to move. If you're using a shallow stamp, you can find that you can run into trouble with this technique. So I highly recommend using a deep indented stamp, like Lisa Pavelka's foliage stamp. So anyway, you'll now take your roller, now that you're finished, and you'll just roll across it to flatten out your texture sheet. And if you've watched a few of my videos, you'll probably realize that I use my roller a lot and then only use the pasta machine. And the reason for this is mainly because I feel like I have more control over the roller. I can see what I'm doing, and I find that my pattern doesn't distort as much. So I highly recommend using your roller before you use the pasta machine. And the reason for that is because you can roll your roller in different directions. So you can see that I'm not going in one direction, I'm actually rolling in a round circular motion. And what this does is it keeps the pattern from distorting while it expands. Okay, so that's basically it. And I don't really need to run it through the pasta machine, it's pretty flat already. So I'll just pick this up with my tissue blade. And another thing, when you're picking it up, always use your firm tissue blade. The thin one, well, the flexible one, when you're picking it up, it can sometimes gouge. So I'll just bring this up for you to see. And here it is. And that is basically my technique on using the hidden magic technique. Now this isn't the exact right one, as you might know, but this is just my variation on it. Now this is a fairly recent technique that I found, so I don't actually have any examples on beads that I've done using this technique because it's fairly recent. But I'd love to see some of your pictures if you ever do use this technique in some of your beads. And if you're on my website Jessama Tutorials, if you look below the video, you can see a form where you can send in some of your pictures. And do please send in some pictures, as I always love seeing what people do using my tutorials. And if you're on YouTube, of course there's not going to be a form down below the video, there's going to be a description and comments, but in the description I will have a link to my website jessamatutorials.com, so please do check that out, as I have articles, tips and tricks and forms where you can send in your pictures, and I would love to see you around. And as always, I hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now.